Yeah.
Welcome to the latest episode of Duality Podcast. I go by the name of Mr. Business.
It's your boy, Mr. Social.
We here. What's good, brother?
How you?
All right, man. Listen, every week is a blessing. What's going on?
That's good. And you know, it's so blessed today that we want to start off with a little cheers to you, man.
You too,
cheers
bro.
to everybody in the room there.
Absolutely, man.
Every
day above ground is beautiful, bro.
We show you our guests came through bearing gifts, which was beautiful. We'll get to him. We can get to that a little later. You know how we start off.
Yeah, you know how we do. What's going on, bro? What's hot right now?
It seemed like at lately what's always hot is number 45. But I'm gonna go back. I gotta correct something last episode.
Okay.
I gave the credit to Moscow Mitch McConnell, but it wasn't. It was Ladybug Lindsey Graham who had made that comment about, he said African Americans and immigrants, you can move around anywhere you want in South Carolina, as long as you're conservative.
Wow.
Then he doubled down on it because the other day during the Senate hearings, he said, so you just want to go back to the good old days of segregation, huh? And tried to say it was sarcasm. They pulling out all the tricks. All the white supremacists is showing they don't care no more. They feeling the power leaving them. The time of the old white man running the United States is running out. And yeah, that's what's hot right now. And I'm glad they doing everything fighting tooth and nail. So it ain't all the way over, but we got them on the run right now, I think.
Well, on the run, to me, that's a stretch. We got them nervous, but on the run, nah, because like I said before, they breed their kids to stay in power.
True.
We breed our kids for athletics, really. Like, that's always been our ticket through sports and entertainment. You know what I mean? Every politician has a child that is breeding to keep their name in politics.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
We definitely, starting the woke era, getting with generational wealth like we should have been, which is handing down positions of power as well as the money itself. But and the privilege is shrinking on white people.
You think so?
Well, let me not say shrinking. I think that is much more recognizable. Like everybody is calling it out now. So that's making them real uncomfortable. And we just got to keep doing that. So I don't want to say shrinking, but they losing some of their privileges, yeah. I think so.
I guess for me, I look at it as if, like, they not losing. We actually starting to come to the table. So they sharing now. You know what I mean?
Excuse me.
They're sharing. They're not really losing. They just can't eat by themselves no more.
Speaking of coming to the table, what's your opinion with us? A lot of opinions going on. You're asking what's hot. The hot topic now is Ice Cube and his contract with Black America.
Right.
And is he a sellout because he talked to the Trump team and all that? Well, I just want to hear what you feel about that before I say what I feel.
Well, I know he was on a Red Table Talk too, talking about it. He has an agenda, and I don't have a problem with the agenda. I don't even have a problem with him talking to Trump, because at the end of the day, you know what I mean? You have to talk to power.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Which is something that I've always said. Like, if you want to get somewhere, you gotta have a destination. So he know who's the one person you need to talk to for change. You know what I mean?
This time, yeah, that's who in power.
So him talking to him is like, okay, let me pick your brain, so to speak, but I'm letting you know what I'm coming with.
But did you hear Trump in them? Like, they have nobody that has a cultural clue. The platinum plan. They might as well have said the spinning rims plan. Like, why they pick platinum?
Well, I look at it like this. For 4 years, he been saying what he want to say. And they always, I've heard this saying, if you say it enough, people believe it.
Sure. even if it's a lie.
Right. So Trump mastered that. Like I keep telling people, man, like he's the smartest crook ever to me. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yep.
Because he know how to spin. He's a spin master. Like Trump, the only person, like for instance, he can have COVID in 2 days or 3 days when he might have had it for 3 weeks.
I'm better. I'm
right. He might have it for 3 weeks.
Feeling real great. I'd had that.
Nah, you heard it. I think it was some rally. He was like, I want to kiss all the men and kiss all the women in the mouth. Like, yeah.
Wow, I missed that one.
Yeah, that was this week, like early part of the week. And he was saying that, like, that was his first, rally after COVID. So he went out there like, oh, man, they ate it up. Don't get me wrong, they ate it up.
Well, it's something. One of the things, I go back just a little bit about Ice Cube going to the table. Look, for one thing, let me look into the camera. Black America, my people, we have to get emotionally mature here. I think we still get too emotional with things. Check your history, right? Think about it. We bombed Japan.
Okay.
And they came and sat on our boat to sign a treaty.
Okay.
So I'm using that as an exaggerated example, but you have to sit down with even your enemies. This go back through ancient history, warring tribes, warring nations. They always would sit down and have peace treaties or different kind of treaties and divide up the land after the war. You have to go to the table, even if you think that person is your enemy, to sit down. And it is a form of negotiation.
Right.
I see politicians do it all the time. They tell you.
Right.
Within that room, they form their coalition.
Right.
If you ain't been voting on the stuff that I'm trying to get through, I'm not doing it for you. Me and my people ain't going. It's business.
Right, but here's the thing, too. As black people, I think it's different for us. Because, like you said, when they did the whole Japan, remember, everybody got compensated for their losses, too.
That's very true.
Right. We haven't got a nickel for a loss.
I'm saying that's kind of what Cube's saying. Like, I don't care who the president. We got to deal with either one who win. And I'm just bringing this plan to him. Now, with some of the people, and I guess this is a Cube thing, right? When he first got into acting, he had all the Hollywood actors mad at him. Like, he's a rapper, he jumped in. So some people are saying now he should leave that to the people that have been the activists. 90% of the plan, the Congressional Black Caucus already had or been trying to pass.
Right.
I mean, okay, that probably is true. And it is definitely, to me, a good look with collaboration and linking up and all that. But, I also see him as a man that just always been a kind of a go-getter. Like, he don't wait for people, you know what I mean? He went for music. Everybody was telling him don't get into Hollywood. All the actors was, they taking the jobs. So he going to do the same thing here. I'm not waiting on no activist or social curator of culture to come to me. I'm making a move.
Okay, we're going to play devil's advocate. Okay? He's making a move. Key word is he's making a move.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't he just say, listen, let's come together and make this move? Like, let me reach out to, all the, as you say, the activists.
Right.
Let me put my plan. Let us go looking united and not,
good point.
Okay, what you do with your acting career, that's your acting career. What you're trying to do now is for a culture.
Mm.
Bring other people with you. That's one of our biggest problems. We do solo missions.
Yeah, no.
We kind of do.
Like, it's so multi-layered. We need people to, multiple people to do things. I remember the civil rights you learned about. They had a legal team. Thurgood Marshall and them was doing that.
Team.
Then you had the Southern Leadership, Christian Leadership
Team.
Sorry. They was doing something.
Team.
I'm saying they doing different things.
But teams.
Ice Cube didn't say he did it by himself. He drafted this thing by himself. If you listen to him on Roland Martin on a couple plays, he said, we put this plan together. We did this. We just don't know who his team is. He ain't make it this far in life and the accomplishment he made by being a dummy. I'm quite sure he didn't get that egotistical and like, I'm going to make a black plan for America by myself.
Listen,
I'm not
I never
claimed
ego. I never said that part. What I was saying was, if there's strength in numbers, we know there's strength in numbers. Bring the numbers to the table. That's all I'm saying. Bring the numbers.
Ooh, did you hear about this?
What's that?
A couple other people I know. The big name wrapped around it is P. Diddy.
Okay.
Our Black Party.
Mm-hmm.
Supposed to be this new kind of doing what you saying, be the umbrella organization to everything. They like you could be Democrat, Republican, whatever religion, whatever, but they're gonna make a party called Our Black Party.
Okay.
And we gonna have an agenda, and everybody in that agenda we gonna move as a voting block.
I like that.
I think that's super smart.
I like that. Yeah.
Because what we said up here a couple times, everything else they gave us in this life, the one thing we was born with was being black. That never could change. And I think that we have to have an agenda where that's first. That's what we unite around. What things is for black folks, not black Democrats, not black Republicans, not black Muslim, not black Christian, just black first.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I think it's smart, like you said.
He said he putting that bread up, too. He said, nah, we got stomach, and I got the money to put behind them. I was like, damn.
Yeah. You know, I guess you know me. I'm always a skeptic about certain things. Like, Diddy had this bread 10 years ago. All these rappers had this bread 10 years ago. I'm just saying, where's the lie?
It's not. But what I'm saying is,
okay,
you gotta let people evolve at their pace. It's here now. See, I think this is what we do to each other. He doing it now, right?
Right.
But we gonna say, why he didn't do it 10 years ago? He doing it now. Who gives a fuck why he didn't do it 10 years ago? He doing it now. In one of the most important elections ever.
I don't know. That's almost unfair to say who gives a fuck. You know what I mean? Because you got families that saying, shit, we needed this 10 years ago. Okay? So they can't say, like, who gives a fuck? They people that gave a fuck in 2000, 2005, 2008.
All the way over. I agree.
You know what I mean? And here's the thing. Remember, the same Diddy damn near took 4 years off. When Obama was running for president, he's the same Diddy that was out there running around.
But hold on, not really.
No, he did. He did hard. He went hard.
He was even talking about hold your vote. He changed on that. He's like, I was wrong. That was ignorant and irresponsible for me to say.
Look at God.
We don't.
Look
leave,
at God.
We gotta leave people room to.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Can he have an ignorant moment? Come on, what the fuck?
Ignorant moment 4 years.
Nah, we gotta be perfect. We hold ourselves. Yeah, I'll be saying that, right? We go to a restaurant. You go to McDonald's. You don't know what the hell they doing in the back. You don't go in there. You don't try to say, yo, I only got $3 for a $4 sandwich. You don't do none of that. As soon as we go to a black restaurant, y'all got chicken wings with habanero sauce, though? Y'all don't got the buffalo chicken that really come from Buffalo, though, do you? Like, they hold these huge standards that make us jump through all these hoops when it's black on. Same thing with Diddy. He made it. He came to his senses. He was like, that was wrong to say that. It was irresponsible, all of that. We can't leave nobody a room to do that and grow.
Well, the proof is in the growth.
10 years ago, he didn't do it. I got that bread.
Let's be clear. He ain't did shit yet to actually solidify that he's doing something. It's all in theory at this point.
Nah, that's not true.
It's in theory.
The man got schools out, everything. What are you talking about?
Man, he had that charter school for a minute. I get it.
Okay, so he did stuff.
No, we ain't talking about that. Come on, man. LeBron got school. That's different. Come on, stop.
He was before LeBron with the schools.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, he did the whole rock.
Look. I'm going to do this right here. Did he had a little school. He had a little school.
See, black people, this is how we do it. It's school little now. It's school little.
He had a little school.
How your little business doing?
Yeah, right. That's what I said. He had a little school. You know what I mean? Had a couple of little kids in there. You know what I mean? LeBron got 4,000 or 5,000. You know what I mean? It's a little different. Hey, but I know, but I get it. Listen, I ain't taking. All I'm saying is, okay, this how you know the power of the voice. Mm-hmm. When Trump was running, all these people, I remember, you had the right to, what's that, sustain your vote?
Yeah, I was kind of saying that, abstain.
Telling people not to vote. Everybody was moving to Africa, all that old shit. You know what I mean? Fast forward now.
That is true.
Right, everybody's moving to Africa.
Ain't nobody left yet.
Ain't
Trump
nobody
went, I'm
left
moving
yet.
to Africa.
Yeah, everybody's moving to Africa. Ain't nobody left yet. Now you fast forward to current day. Now everybody back on everybody need to vote. This is the thing, consistency.
True.
We need consistency with this.
Well, one of the things I always said is don't force me to vote. And, you know, they throw the ancestors died for us they say it, but they really don't listen to it to me. Now, I still do think this.
Right.
Our ancestors died because we supposed to have the right to, not just to vote. And I think it is something to be said that it could be a strategy if, as a block, we abstain from it. Politicians, they look at numbers and numbers and numbers. They base their whole career in life off of numbers. Okay. If we disrupt the number machine by, you know, that was my thought, a little deeper than just don't vote. We had to do it as a block.
No, say it again. We disrupt what?
The
number machine, right?
Yeah.
That's how you get 45. Because you disrupt the number machine. And now he control the numbers.
Well, look.
This is what we doing.
We going to talk about somebody, and I guess here we going to go in, we talk about voting. I think is a prime example. If you want to follow a politician, look at their voting record. And this man's voting record in the state of New Jersey as a state assemblyman is on every social issue that we see our people out here fighting for. He getting the work done at the legislative level. I want to introduce our special guest today, the 20th District of New Jersey State Assemblyman Jamil Holly.
Thank you. Gentlemen. What's good?
Welcome to the Duality Podcast.
What's going on, my brothers?
Good.
All love, man.
I like that
all
intro.
love.
Y'all was really into it.
Yeah, we try to, you know.
Covered a lot of the national politics.
Absolutely. We say you come here, you be informed and get entertained at the same time.
Absolutely.
And Duality Podcast, because like you said,
we don't never get
we disagree on damn near everything.
Uncut and raw. That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's what's
what
up, my gentlemen.
Thank you for the libation.
My pleasure.
We're
We're going to pour a little bit up.
A celebration to all of you, both of you and your team, and for bringing urban radio to our community, because I think that's important. I think that's what's missing, especially here in Union County and the state of New Jersey.
Right, absolutely.
We don't have a lot of urban radio. We have the internet. We have some of our music stations, 105.1 and, you know, all of that, 97.1. But real urban radio is about the community.
Absolutely.
You know, and I just want to commend you guys for doing the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
But just bringing out those issues that you just spoke about, whether you disagree or not, and whether you agree or not, you know, it's all about the conversation, debate, and dialogue.
Healthy dialogue.
I tell people that all the time, you know, you may not like what I stand for or the issues that I'm fighting for, but, you know, let's have a conversation and debate about it. And I think you guys are doing exactly that on this show, and I'm just privileged and honored to be here with both of you today.
Oh, now you talk about an intro.
And thank you for the
Make sure y'all record this, Noah. We can use this in promo.
Thank you for the invite.
Right.
Thank you for the invite. So what's going on?
Good.
All right, first thing I want to do is congratulate you on Legislator of the Year.
Legislator of the Year.
Thank you, brother.
That's pretty new, too. That just happened.
It just happened the other day. You know, in the midst of COVID, you know, we've been doing a lot of stuff going on. You know, we got unemployment. We got funds that need to be allocated to individuals who are on unemployment. Our families are struggling. Our businesses are struggling. Our families are struggling. And it was just an honor to even receive that in the midst of all this. I wasn't expecting it.
Right.
You know, I do what I do every single day for families, fighting for their rights and fighting for what I believe is fair and equal. And the call came, and we accepted it. And I'm just privileged and honored to even, you know, be even recognized. I mean, it's 120 of us, you know, in the State House.
Right.
You know, 40 state senators and 80 assembly people.
Okay.
You know, anything that needs to be passed into law has to go through 120 people. And for me to be the number one out of 120, I'm very honored.
What's up?
But I got to be honest. It's my colleagues. It's the people I work with. And quite frankly, it's the representatives from my community, who my voters. Elizabeth Roselle, Hillside of Union, who I get up.
That's the 20th district right there. Say that again.
That's the 20th legislative district, a legislative district of 20th.
Elizabeth,
Union, Hillside, and the Roselle.
And Roselle.
I was the past former mayor.
You was the mayor of Roselle. Yeah, talk. What year was that?
I was 3 years mayor prior to 2015 when I became a member of the legislature. So 2014, 13, 12, I was elected in 11.
Wow.
And
we gotta give it up for that.
Were you the youngest mayor in Roselle history?
I was the youngest mayor elected in the borough's history, you know. But to whom much is given, you know, much is required, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not just about being young, right? It's about making sure that you're there for the people and making sure you provide a resource and making sure you provide a service for them at the local level. And that's what I tried to do. Prior to that, I was the councilman there for 7 years. And then in 2011, ran for mayor and was sworn in 2013. And in 2015, I made the transition to the State House. There was an open seat, and I became the first African-American to represent the 20th Legislative District in the history.
I didn't know that.
History of the
in
legislature.
2015, you said? It was just the first time that the 20th district had an African American. Period.
Yeah.
Wow.
You name me one.
I'll be honest. When we was younger, I didn't even pay attention as much as I should have to local politics.
And state and county. But you know, there was this. My brother had sent me this this rap video, and this guy who was a rapper. I don't remember his name at the time, but he really outlined in his rap video that it's always not the president of the United States who makes the decision. It's always not the governor who makes the decision. It's always not the mayor who makes the decision. We look at those as the head of those states, right? The mayor for the local, you know, the governor for the state, and then the president for the national, right? But it's the legislative body who actually makes the action for that executor, for that administrator to sign their name on the dotted line. So the work is in the legislative body. The work is in that council person. The work is in, you know, the county commissioners now, former freeholders. The work is in now state assemblymen and state assembly and state senate.
Absolutely.
The work is in the Congress and the United States Senate. That's where the work is. That's where your focus should be in terms of making change.
Now, I do remember a few minutes ago you said, you know, about you brought up age. But I'm thinking, this is just my perspective, you kind of, to me, is like the blueprint to what young Afro-Americans can do at a young age. Like, you don't have to be 35, 40. Right. You can get into this situation early.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
because, you know, it was always the stigma that young people don't really know what they're doing, right?
Right.
It was always, so, you know, I got it early on. I mean, I was 24, 25 years old running for a councilman spot. And at large at that in the borough of Roselle, and I'm very grateful to my community who had the confidence in me, and I hope that I made them proud. But you know, I got a lot of that when I was young. You know, like you know, you don't know what you're really doing. You know, wait some time. You know, wait your turn. You know, I hear that a lot even now.
Yeah. Right.
Definitely 20 years later, I'm hearing wait my time. You know,
that is like a politic thing.
Right. Yeah. It's like wait your time, but why wait your time? Because I mean, if you look at the systemic progression in politics, how many years do you need to do something? How many years do you need to be
and that's what it is. I would say, looking at it, that's probably what it is. Those people in power don't want that young, vigorous energy coming through. No, wait your turn, because they're going to have to fight then. They got to get on their game, sharpen up, right?
Right.
They want the easy path all the time.
But
they don't want these young warriors.
But then it's like I said, the people that's in politics, they train their young up.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
And I was fortunate. You know, I had the opportunity to work with some of the best elected officials in the state of New Jersey. When you think about Charlotte DiFilippo, former county chairwoman of Union County. When you think of the Senator Raymond Lesniak, one of our longest serving senators in the state of New Jersey, I grew up underneath that.
Okay.
Right.
And I think that one of the unique things that I was able to do was be who I was and bring the aspect of that I'm a young African American. And while they weren't young and African American or even black, I think they were very smart in hearing who I was and hearing what I brought to the table.
What you represented.
And aligned that with the policies that they were trying to do, not only for the county, but for the state of New Jersey. And I think that they are a very good part of why I'm here today. because they believed in me and knew that I stood for some things that were not being addressed in government. Even to this day, we in 2020, and we're still fighting for segregation. We're still fighting against segregation. We're still fighting for equal rights and opportunity.
Right.
And that shouldn't be,
True.
right?
Right.
Not at all.
Right? But we're still fighting for that. So I think I'm that voice in the State House. And I mean, it's not made some people happy. Right. But at the end of the day, I think I'm able to walk away from that comfortably and able to sleep at night saying that you haven't lived what I lived.
Right.
And if you're in leadership power and if you are trying to, make a difference in our state and our community, you got to hear me out where I come from and hear the things that I need addressed from where I come from.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the pendulum that I've been able to move. Not only in this county of Union County, but also the state of New Jersey. It's not made me a lot of friends,
right?
And that's
I
okay.
get it.
But the issues are being
built
addressed.
for it, brother.
The issues are being addressed, and we're getting a lot of stuff done. We're getting a lot of stuff done.
That's what I want to talk about. I
We're getting a lot
want
of
to. I kind of been watching his career. I'll let you know that. I'll follow you, brother.
Thank you.
So I might not remember every bill, the name and the number to the bill, but we're gonna talk about it. Like You just was talking about how moving the pendulum. And again, this is how everybody out there, you should judge your politician. They got public record of the things they vote on, the things they introduce to be legislation. So all the time you might not win the vote, but you'll understand where your representative is coming from, things he tried to introduce. So I want to go down the list, a couple of them. The legalization of marijuana here in New Jersey. Did you help introduce any legislation for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, let me take you back for legalization of marijuana. The Senator Scutari, senator out of Linden, brought legalization to New Jersey. Prior to me, I was still a councilman and mayor when he brought legalization to the state of New Jersey, and a lot of people already really ridiculed him and said, "What are you doing? What are you talking about? Legalization of marijuana?" It wasn't a sexy thing, right? It wasn't a popular thing to talk about. This is going back years ago. And Nick called me as I was making the transition from mayor to the assembly. And he said, "Can you join me on a trip to Colorado?" Because, as you know, Colorado was one of the first states.
I saw that.
In the United States that really legalized marijuana. So he said, "Can you come along with me to take a trip?" So I said, yeah, of course. I wanted to really see what was going on in the other states and really talk about, what was going on in those states versus what was really going on in our states. And in our state, New Jersey, was nothing going on with legalization.
Right.
What I knew was that where I come from is that individuals who look like me were getting arrested every single day, right? For low levels of possession of marijuana. Sometimes, even when we look at the numbers now, sometimes 3 to 4, sometimes it even reaches to 5 times likely than our white counterparts were even being arrested when you look at different areas.
Okay.
And then I started peeling away at a lot of the layers and looking at all of the money that was spent just on low-level possessions of marijuana. We're not talking about the big possessions. We're not talking tons and ounces and hundreds of pounds. We're talking about the low levels of marijuana, and starting to peel away the layers and looking at the layers, and I'm like, we spent $143 million in New Jersey alone. This is not no other state.
Wow.
We spent $143 million in New Jersey just for arrest on our local, county, and state. $1 million just on low levels of possessions of marijuana. And those arrest records are 2 to 3, 4 times people who look like me versus than our white counterparts. And no disrespect to our white counterparts, right?
But
it's just the numbers.
Facts.
Facts is facts.
Facts is facts, right.
And even in the testimony when I'm hearing testimony from individual cops and law enforcement officers who I do respect in most aspects. I come from a single family grandparent household who was a law enforcement official. But when you're looking at those numbers, you're like, wow, 3 to 4 and 5 times likely for African-American male in particular being arrested and convicted versus our white counterparts and $143 million. I said, this is a systematic problem.
Yes, it is.
And it's FBI data. So I wasn't pulling data from just a pulling it out of my
Anywhere,
pocket,
Right.
The same data that the police departments look at when they're touting why they need grants for their police departments
Right.
is the same data I'm looking at of making sure that you realize that the same data that I'm trying to propel African Americans out of this, I'm looking at your same data. So I want to meet you where you are.
Use your numbers.
You know, I'm
Use
using your numbers with you, right?
Yeah,
so
for reform issues.
$143 million, right?
That's crazy.
African Americans 3 to 4 times likely to be arrested than our white counterparts. I said, well, let me introduce the bill when I get to the legislature. So I took Senator Scutari's bill and introduced that particular bill. Now, there's been some different renditions of legalization bills, but it wasn't his particular bill who he had worked on for a lot of years. I introduced that same exact bill, but what I did was I made amendments to it. And if you know anything about bills and laws, you can make amendments to legislation, you know. So when I introduced my amendments, I introduced it with a strong social justice and social equity aspect, meaning that it should be electronic e-filing system for expungements for those individuals who have been hardest hit for low-level possessions of marijuana automatic expungements. I wanted to create conditional licenses for those communities that have been hardest hit with the arrest. Looking at the data, right? When you look at East Orange, when you look at Elizabeth, when you look at Roselle, when you look at Trenton, when you look at Camden, I wanted to create conditional licenses in those communities that if you wanted to set up a retail shop or if you wanted to get into the marijuana business, that those communities that have been hardest hit would have those people in those communities obtain conditional licenses for those and set up shop, and you have to live there in order to set up shop. And if you had a past record for low-level possessions of marijuana,
expunged quickly.
you could get it expunged, and it would not forbid you for obtaining a license in your community.
Okay.
It's talking about jobs, not only just retail. We're talking about growing and cultivation. We're talking about delivery. We're talking about all the other aspects that come along.
Tax, right?
And tax.
So that helping the state, doing business. They got.
But another thing that I wanted to do, I introduced that it should be a reinvestment of all the tax dollars, because normally what happens, when we get tax dollars, what does it do? It goes into the general fund.
Right.
And then the general fund, anybody can pick from that, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to say, well, if it's going back to the general fund, there needs to be an assessment into reinvesting back into those communities who have been hardest hit. So I introduced that particular bill with amendments. We created a division in the Department of Health as well in the legislation that says there needs to be an office for women, minorities, and disabled veterans, so that there's a clear focus on whatever amount of licenses that are going to be given to those individuals who want to set up retail shops, who want to set up medical marijuana shops, who want to get into the cultivation, whoever wants to get into the business of marijuana, that there has to be a set aside. There has to be a certain amount of percentage that goes to minorities, to women, to disabled veterans. And then the conversation in New Jersey kind of took off.
Okay.
And other states started to pick it up. By far, we have the strongest social justice and social equity legislation in the United States. There are other states who are picking away at ours, even Colorado, and they've been in years in advance, but they never had the social equity. They never had the social justice aspect of the language that I put into our bill. We had the votes in the Assembly. Unfortunately, it fell short in the Senate. So what the agreement was that we would kick the can down the road. I wasn't too much of a fan of it, but kicking it down the road. But they wanted to kick the can down the road. There was an agreement to kick the can down the road to the voters. So this November 3rd, that's why you have the ballot question.
November 3rd, y'all.
You have the ballot question number 1, if whether or not you want to support legalization of marijuana. Our polling is astronomical. The polling's doing great. I'm very conservative, so I like to go on the lower end.
Right.
I'm at 60% that this was passed, but our polling shows 67, even up to the 70% that this is going to pass. So what that does is that's a constitutional amendment on the ballot for individuals in New Jersey to say whether or not they want legalization here in New Jersey. And what that then will do once it passes, come back to the legislature, have us dust off that bill that we were working on all these years and make sure that we have now a mandate and we have a constitutional mandate to now pass this. So it's going to come back to us once this passes November 3rd.
Now,
we're already working on it now in anticipation because the poll numbers are astronomical. This is going to win big and win really, really big.
Now, with that, what was the opposition in the Senate?
I mean, you know politics, right?
Like what was the red line? What do they call the red
it's
line?
Politics. It's politics, bro. It's politics at the end of the day.
Okay.
There's no secret that there are things that are going on with our legislative leadership in the front office, and politicians just, not always agreeing with one another, right? That's just what it is, right? So I think that it was a blessing in disguise while we wanted to get it done then. And I think now they even have much more of a regret of not doing it back then.
Right.
We could have been ahead of the curve.
We could have been ahead of the curve in a lot of the financial issues that we're having here in the state of New Jersey. But for me, it was about the relief to people who look like me. That's why I really got involved. It was about making sure that the expungements were there, making sure that the opportunities were there, that we were not going to allow people from the outside in different states coming in, buying licenses and using their political, influence to get licenses, but not leaving the little man like us, right, to get into that business. And make sure that people have a second chance at the end of the day. And we talk about decriminalization, right? And I'm a sponsor of the decriminalization bill. We passed the Assembly. It's still waiting in the Senate to be voted on. But decriminalization doesn't go far enough for me. I mean, it's a fix, right?
Right.
Because if you do possess marijuana and you're caught with marijuana, it's basically a low-level ticket. Disorderly persons, right? But it still's not regulated. Let's get into the regulated business, right? So I'm a fan of decrim. This is my bill. I got it through the Assembly, waiting in the Senate, just like the other stuff is waiting in the Senate, always waiting in the Senate, right? We can get it through the Assembly, but it doesn't go far enough for me because you still had to deal with the ticket and everything. Let's just fully legalize it, regulate it, give people an opportunity. If you don't want to participate in marijuana activities, you don't have to. Just like you don't have to do it with cigarettes that's 21 and older, or alcohol that's 21 and over. And the whole argument for me is that there's individuals who are on both sides of this issue. Like, I never understood a person who says, I'm for medical marijuana. But damn it, if you're for medical marijuana, why are you not for 21 and over? If it's healthy and good for the medical side.
Right.
Somebody who actually is sick,
it can help them. If you're 21 and older and you are an adult and you have a responsibility to be an adult, pass 21 and over and cut away at all these systematic racist laws that we have here that are dealing
worst
with
case,
put
that little warning sign they put on cigarettes to make it, like,
and if you travel to every other state, and if you visited any other state that has legalization at 21, you will see that it's very much enforced. It's not this polarized conception that, it's like a corner store and you could just walk in and everybody's just like hanging out. It's very organized. You have to go into most of the places that I went to and visited just because of trying to get information to bring it back to the state of New Jersey. It's industrial areas. It's not around houses. It's not around schools. It's not around churches. It's not around that downtown aspect of what we drive through every day. It's in a really secluded area.
But then the liquor stores be in those type of areas.
Of course. They allow liquor stores, right? They allow cigarettes on our corner stores and the bodegas, right? But it's really, really organized in a sense where it's in an undisclosed, really,
You gotta know you're going to look for it to go get it.
Of course. And it's armed security. You have to show your ID twice, and you have to go and shop. And you're not getting in that facilities. I've been to California. I've been to Colorado. I've been to Vermont. I've been to all the places that have this just to learn. I've never experienced anything like it more organized as it relates to just trying to get in. They're just not letting everybody get in, and you're not hanging out at these places at all. But there's revenue side to it, and there's a reinvestment back into our communities because our communities have been hard hit, especially in our urban and minority communities, and that's why I'm a proponent of it, to make sure that we get it here in the state of New Jersey.
Wow, now the marijuana went deep right there, right? There's a couple of more things that I know, and I could look at the things, the bills you've introduced, the legislative you introduced or signed on to, is really, really progressive. Is that a bad word to say for that? And the fact, or just that I know, you know, it tackles a multitude of social issues. I know, enlighten me a little more on, you signed and introduced a bill for single moms and daycare.
Yeah, so in the middle of COVID, right, you know, we had moms and parents, right? Just put a totality, right? It's parents.
Parents, excuse me. Single dads out there, too.
Single dads out there, too, hustling and doing what they feel is best, right? And I'll get back to them in a second because single dads were hardest hit when it relates to driver's license and child support payments. So remind me of that as well later on in the show, especially for our African-American males. But, you know, parents can't afford, even in the middle of the pandemic, for childcare and supplemental services. So I introduced a bill that will allow them to get reimbursed for the childcare services. The bill didn't go through. What we did was just allocated money into the budget. So now that instead of it becoming law, what they can do is the parents can just jump onto Health and Human Services, our Family Services Department division in the state of New Jersey, and apply for funding for supplemental child care services because they're taking a big hit here in the state of New Jersey with, you know, trying to do the virtual learning.
Yep.
And then also trying to stay at home and do the daycare and a lot of that. And so we were able to get that through in the budget. Also in the budget, I'm very proud to announce that, I've only been in the legislature 5 years. I'm proud to announce that this year with this final budget that I've been able to produce $1 billion in funding for our schools. Ooh, so Elizabeth, Roselle,
Hillside,
Union.
Heavyweight down there, man.
We reached $1 billion in just the last 5 years that I've been in the legislature, and this just doesn't come because, you know, people just want to fund it. You got to have that voice inside the room to say, "Listen, our kids need it." We hit $1 billion with our senior freeze and our homestead rebates for those property tax owners who just need that one check to help them get by to at least pay a quarter or two. We hit $1 billion on that. We hit $1 million on heating and energy assistance through Jewish Family Services and proceeds there in Elizabeth. We hit $1 million. So for me, it's not about, you know, just getting along to get along. It's about me just going into those rooms and making sure that the people who I live amongst and people where I come from,
commend you for that.
That these resources are needed available. So I'm very proud after the 5 years that I've been in the assembly that we hit $1 billion in District 20 alone.
I want to be quite honest. That's what I'm trying to do. Lay this outline out. And
for the marijuana and anybody who wants information on that, they can visit NewJerseyCan2020.com so they can get the campaign information. New Jersey NJ Can2020.com.
Let's go, y'all. NJCan2020.com. Okay. What about the restoration of voting rights?
Yep.
You was on that bill.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at individuals.
You can vote now in New Jersey.
Individuals who have served their time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean serve their time, meaning out of jail, right? They may be on parole, probation, getting integrated back into the community. I want to thank the ACLU and the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice who really helped a lot of us shepherd this particular bill. But when you look at individuals who have served their time in jail and they're out on parole and probation, right? They're integrated back in the community. Why should we not allow them the opportunity to register to
do
vote?
community stuff?
Right.
Absolutely.
Get engaged. You know, they're probably working. They're paying taxes. So give them their right to vote. And there's 88,000 individuals here in the state of New Jersey who are eligible right now, who are on parole and probation, that now, prior to my bill and prior to the bill that has been worked on with so many of my colleagues and so many of the social justice advocates, 88,000 people now in the state of New Jersey who are on parole, probation, can register to vote and participate in the vote.
Because we know that's part of the systemic
racism.
That they threw their clutches on the hamster on the wheel, right?
Lock us up. That's 88,000 people.
That's right.
So now 88,000 people in the state of New Jersey can register to vote if they're on parole and probation.
So that's another
and most
thing.
of the individuals that look like me and look like us. But if they don't look like us and they don't look like me, it doesn't matter. They still should have the opportunity to register to vote and participate in the electoral process of who they want, their local leaders, their county leaders, their state leaders, and their federal leaders, who they want to represent them.
You're empowering people, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.
They I know one more I want to get to is the introduction of the bill of the Anti-Violence Commission or office. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, several years ago, Senator Lesniak, along with one of our good brothers from Elizabeth, Salam Ishmael, and James Carey, they were out there, ensuring that, our rights were being addressed. There was a commission that was instituted through state law, the Violence Prevention Commission, and out of that Violence Commission, one of the recommendations is to set up an office in all of our counties, 21 counties. We have 21 counties, but through the prosecutor's office and also at the Division of Attorney General's office, that we would set up a anti-violence prevention office in each one of our counties and in the state. I introduced the bill because it came as a recommendation. Too often, right, we hear these commissions being established, and we got to set up a commission, whether it's the 5G commission. I think Nancy Pelosi just announced that she wants to, introduce legislation for the 25th Amendment Commission. Right. There's always these commissions that are established and the work's done, but after the commission is done. And they make recommendations, there's very little legislation that's passed to act on those recommendations. So we pulled from the recommendation from the commission.
Wow, you use your common sense. Huh?
I mean, I tried to, right?
Absolutely.
I tried to, right? And even in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all the unfortunate individuals that we were, we lost, we want to try to get ahead of the curve. And so with this anti-violence prevention office in our county prosecutor's office and in our state attorney general's office, we introduced the legislation. It's going through the legislative process now. We're going to do a bunch of amendments because Senator Scutari reached out, and Shirley Turner in Trenton wants to come up with a preventative court. So as opposed to like the drug court, as opposed to sending individuals to jail and incarcerating them, let's try to have a preventative drug court or preventative court for violence that will help individuals knowing that if they made a mistake and it wasn't taking someone's life, that, here's your second chance. Here's the preventative
anger management.
Yeah, here's the preventative stuff so you don't have to go into that system problem that we know exists even till today. So those are one of the bills I'm working on right now. That's pretty new. We'll probably get a lot of that due after the election. Okay. And once we get back into the swing of it down in Trenton, there's a lot going on right now with the election going on. But once after November 3rd, we should be, bringing that back up and putting that through committees and bringing it to the floor.
That's well needed as well.
I'm going to ask you, what are your pros and cons to vaccinations?
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Let me tell you how I got involved in the vaccination world, and it's been pretty interesting over the last several months. But there was a bill back in December and January that was before me, and the bill was to mandate vaccinations to our kids in daycare, pre-K to K, and from K to 12. I was a no vote. I was a quiet no vote in the Assembly, but it wasn't until it got to the Senate to where they didn't have enough votes to pass it. And in order to get enough votes, they went to a Republican senator who said, "I'll give you my one vote to mandate vaccinations in the state of New Jersey, but you got to carve out the private schools, so that individuals and kids who went to private schools and individual kids that went to private daycares, they wouldn't have to adhere to mandatory vaccinations." Wow. So I said, well, we're in 2020, right? That's segregation, right?
Absolutely.
So why is it in 2020 when we entertain a segregated amendment being put forth by a Republican senator who needed one vote for you to say, the kids who look like me, black,
got to take the
right?
shot.
They got to take the shot.
Right.
They got to be mandated to take the shot. But the kids, and there's some kids who look like me that can afford private schools and private daycares, right? But the kids who go to private schools and private daycares, they don't have to adhere to it. But the conversation when it first started said we needed to be there for the health and wellness of all kids. So I said, well, you don't think the public school kids are going to run into the private school kids at the mall or the playground, or you're not going to interact with them? So why are we segregating the health of our kids? So I stood up and stood out, and I said, well, I'm not going to tolerate segregation with our kids in 2020. You're not going to mandate our public school kids, but not mandate our private school kids. And then on top of that, there was two other issues on that. They were removing the religious exemption. So if you're a Muslim or some who Jewish or a Catholic, for those of you who are really involved in your religion and who are not so much in line with having vaccinations, they were removing that right from you.
Wow.
And then they were removing your medical exemption. But then you had parents. When I stood up and stood out, I met parents who had vaccine injured kids who said, Assemblyman, we're not against vaccinations, right? We're not anti-vaxxers, and that's a big pharma terminology. The minute you question vaccinations, and there's a whole lot of people questioning vaccinations right now.
Yes, it is.
Even with this warp speed coming from Washington, D.C. But when you even question vaccinations, you become an anti-vaxxer, right? It's not that, you don't want to go along with the schedule. There's 76 shots that are on the vaccine schedule that some parents who have vaccine-injured children say, I don't want to do the whole schedule. I want to just pick and choose my kid of where they go because I have a vaccine-injured child. And I think as elected officials, we should hear those parents out. And so I stood up and stood out. Wasn't the fact that I was against vaccinations. I'm a fully vaccinated individual, right? I've had my flu shot. I've had all the other vaccinations that I needed. But what you're not going to do in 2020 is that you're not going to segregate our kids based upon where they live and based upon where they can afford to go to school. And you're not going to carve out those individuals who want to practice their religion. I mean, if it's about the wealth and wellness of everybody, health and wellness of everybody, I think that people should have a right to pick and choose whether or not, and nothing should be mandated.
Now, does the
I'm against mandates. That's what I'm against. I'm not against the vaccinations, but when you get Big Pharma who wants to just push their agenda out and they cherry pick these little local reporters who just wake up and want to write about something, they push these articles out and want to make it seem like I'm an anti-vaxxer, but I'm not. But that's the game, right?
So they run their publicity machine against you as well.
So when I started to peel away the layers on vaccinations, and when I started to see big pharmaceutical companies writing contributions to my colleagues, right, to push the agenda of mandates, I started to say, oh, wow, my colleague here got $200,000 over 2 and 3 years from pharmaceutical companies. I started to travel all around the country with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who actually called me to get me involved because he's been working on this for 15, 20 years now. So I'm going all over the country, noticing that pharmaceutical companies are actually writing checks to legislators for their campaigns to push mandates. Now, this ain't never been done, right? Like, why are we mandating? If someone wants to go line up and have a vaccination, they should be given that right. But if someone doesn't, or because of an unfortunate situation, their rights should remain intact.
Absolutely.
For their own family. Government shouldn't be at the kitchen table to decide whether or not what you want to do with your doctor. Not me. I didn't sign up for that 15 years ago when I signed up for public office. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I know that there's articles out there. I know the people that sometimes may want to joke about it. But what I really did for people and what they really don't understand is that I saved their rights. I protected them. I protected them from big pharmaceutical companies embargoing and infiltrating on their decision
Buying
to make
their agenda.
a medical decision.
So
and
now-
had I not, they wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I tell people all the time, I said, do you pick and choose what you want to do in your medical decisions? And people say, yeah. I said, well, guess what? Had I not stood up for you, you wouldn't have had that right.
Right, it would have just been mandated.
It would have been mandated.
Now, does the data, okay, since, politics, that was going to go with data. So does the data suggest the mandate, or is it strictly just politics?
It's politics.
Strictly,
It's
right?
strictly politics.
They want to make
Most of
money.
the people,
more
it is
people are
70,
mandated.
there's 76% of people who take their flu shot in the state of New Jersey.
Right.
So why would you want to mandate something if 76% of the population
Doing it voluntarily.
Right.
Yeah.
They're doing it voluntarily. And I think that should remain intact, because what you don't realize is that some of these parents, and a lot of them, have vaccine injured children. And you cannot sue the pharmaceutical company. 1986 law in Congress says they have no liability. So if we're talking about safe vaccines and we're talking about they're effective, then remove the 1986 and repeal that. You
Right.
can't sue. Right now, if you are vaccine injured, you cannot directly sue a pharmaceutical company. What they
I
did
read
was
that.
set up this vaccine court that takes about 5 to 10 years to go through. By the
Right.
time you get to the end of it, the individual probably is gone,
Yeah, it's
unfortunately, right? But you've shelled out so much money to try to get through 5 and 10 years of the vaccine court. But it's not the pharmaceutical company that you're suing. It's that you're making an application to the vaccine court that was set up by the federal government that is paid for by taxpayers' dollars. And they've paid over the last 4 to 5 years just in just this current time, $9 billion in vaccine.
$9 billion would
$9
it be?
billion in claims.
Because I remember hearing they were saying how certain vaccines and shots was linked to autism and prenatal mothers.
Yeah, and a lot of parents believe that, and there's a reason why New Jersey is number one in the country. We live in big pharmaceutical country. New Jersey is pharmaceutical country, right? We have 1 in 20 boys in New Jersey who are diagnosed with autism, and nobody that's the real pandemic.
Yeah,
Right? People
absolutely.
want to talk about pandemic.
Absolutely.
Why is it there 1 in every 20 boys in the state of New Jersey, diagnosed with autism, and nobody wants to talk about it? When you peel away the layers, and I've done some peeling away, and we're going to be
Is it
bringing
more
out
African American boys?
and 1 in 5 African American boys, in particular in Essex and Union County.
Look at that.
Wow.
So we're going to be looking at this over the next few months and the next couple years on that, because that's the real pandemic. But see, nobody wants to talk about that. They want to put this fear-monger out there, right? They want to call me the anti-vax of the state. They want to call me the anti-vax of the assembly. While I don't mind that, and it's okay, but what I'm doing is I'm really unpeeling a issue that hasn't really been talked about. And why? Why are you attacking me for trying to get to the bottom of an issue that has been going on for so long? And so it's not been popular, right? I've had some disagreements with my legislators and the leadership, but they know what I'm on to. They know what it's all about. Just look at the numbers, look at the contributions, look at the effects that's happening in our communities. And at the end of the day, whether I'm here or not, what Jamil Holly will be known for is trying to get to the bottom of an issue that's facing our communities. And I could care less if it's popular or not. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think that if you look at all of what has happened and look at what has been going on, you will see that we're on to something, because they know that we're paying attention. And they didn't realize that this young African-American male in the state of New Jersey here in Union County had, really got to the bottom of something that they've been getting away with for a very long time.
You don't hear many politicians say they want to do what's right. They usually want to do what interest, what's going to get them voted again.
Absolutely.
What's going to get donated to their campaign. That's how they make decisions. I want to say I appreciate that you standing up as a man and just doing what's right.
Thank you.
Like that's big. Seriously.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It seems so small, right?
Yeah.
But they always got an angle, or at least the general public. I speak how we was raised to think politicians always want something for something.
Right. And you know
Just
what?
to say I want to do what's right.
Right,
that's
and I
big.
do want to do what's right. But you know what sometimes the difficulty is that our own people, the African American people in particular, come at African Americans who are in leadership positions so hard because they may read something,
Right.
or there may be an article, and it's so hard on us because, they focused on just what they read as opposed to really having a conversation.
Right.
And some of our own people are our own worst enemies. And I say to the African American community, in particular in Union County, in particular in Roselle, Elizabeth, Hillside, and Union, what I represent, I am in those trenches. I am in that war room fighting for you because you didn't have $1 billion in school funding before I got there 5 years ago. You didn't have $1 million for heating and gas assistance before I got there. You didn't have $1 billion in senior freeze rebates, and you didn't have $1 billion in homestead rebates before I got there. So what was happening before I got there 5 years ago? Nothing. Right. You were just giving rhetoric from individuals who were just feeding you information, and if they maybe gave your son a job, or if they gave this one a job, and that's all good and well, but what were they systematically doing to help your everyday needs, to help you become a better person? Nothing.
Absolutely.
Nothing. So when I hear your intro of when you all were talking about Ice Cube, you see the African American community attacking Ice Cube.
Killing them, man. That's what got me.
But I say good job, Ice Cube, because here you have an individual who is a rapper, who is in the entertainment industry, who is in Hollywood, who went to the most powerful president in the world.
Right.
Who said, we need this for the African American community. Who's doing that?
Right.
Where is the Congressional Black Caucus?
Mm-hmm.
That's why Trump didn't meet with him, because they don't respect the president. And whether you disagree with Trump or not, and listen, we've had our doubts with Trump, but at the end of the day, he's the president of the United States, so you ignore him?
Yeah.
Or do you go and have a conversation with him to
Absolutely.
get him to understand? I don't always agree with Governor Murphy, but I can call Governor Murphy. I can have a conversation. I don't always agree with Senator Sweeney. They don't look like me, but I got to go to them and speak with them about some of the things that are going on in our communities. And that's why I was able to get $1 billion for our schools. That's why I was able to get $1 billion for our homestead rebates, because you got to have conversations with people in power. And until the African American community steps back and stop being so critical of our black elected officials when we do something, or it may not be as popular to them at the present time, or Hollywood stars like Ice Cube who are going to meet with the president, whether you want to call it Platinum Plus or not. Name me one president who said that I'm committed to putting $500 billion into the African.
$500 billion.
Name me one.
Now, he got to do it. You're right, none.
Name me one. So why get mad at Ice Cube because he's going to have a conversation with the president?
That's why I said.
Doesn't make sense. The action happens in the war room. The action happens in those meetings. So stop being so critical
We have to get
of our people. We got to get out of that.
Emotionally and intellectually more mature.
Yeah.
And more savvy, especially when it comes to politics, man. And boy, I wish we had a 3-hour time slot here.
But unfortunately, this 1 hour of great.
We gotta get part 2, man. We gotta get.
We gotta get
After
part
the
two of
election,
this.
because I believe that we're going to have a lot of conversation to do
No
after
doubt.
this election. I don't want you all to
Absolutely.
be shocked at what's going to go take place after this election, but I'll be more than willing to come back. And don't ask me no questions about the election until after November 3rd.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
But I can
We'll
trust
do
it. I can tell you, trust me and believe me. Hear me now, believe me later. We're going to have a very interesting conversation after November 3rd.
Okay.
All right. So,
Well, we want to thank our guest, State
Thank you.
Assemblyman of the
Thank
20th Legislative District
Thank you,
in New Jersey, Jamil Holly. And we'll be back next week, man.
yeah, man. God bless.
This was woo.
Yeah.
You on fire.
God bless. Good night.
God bless.